about AI, specifically building AI work streams within Claude using Cowork and Code. Welcome to everybody joining us today. We have nearly 1,000 people who are registered for this one, so it's a big one. As you guys know, AI is eating the world. It's all over the news on LinkedIn. So we thought we would do a session about it to let you guys know how it's looking. I posted on LinkedIn on my own personal account looking for someone who could come in and really teach us the ropes and kind of get dirty about what's going on with Claude Code. And Christian, came in and super happy to have him here. He'll jump in very, very soon to give you some concrete use cases. But before I do, would just actually like to get a quick gauge. Drop in the chat 1 to 5 how comfortable you are with Claude and Claude Code and Cowork. That'll give a good sense for Christian as to like where we are in terms of like level. So 1 through 5, 5 being you're an expert, 1 being you're a noob. If you can just drop in the chat, we'd love to see that. So we'll just wait until those answers come in. Besides that, let's see here. Looks like cool. Besides that, for all of you who just joining now, this session is hosted by CFO Connect. CFO Connect is a community designed to help you be better at your job in finance, and you can learn more by checking out here in the chat. My name is Luke, and I lead all things community at CFO Connect, and you can connect with me following on LinkedIn right there. There will also be a Q&A, so feel free to drop questions in the Q&A tab on the right-hand side. And that's pretty much it for me. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Christian for a quick intro, and we'll get into it. Christian, the floor is yours.
Hey, I'm super stoked to be here. It's really cool to have so many people that are interested in learning about AI and kind of transforming their careers. I think it's a time in the world where you don't want to sit back, you want to plug in, and I think this is a great way to plug in. And I'm hoping to provide you with some useful information that can help you level up your understanding of AI and ultimately your career. So quick background, I'm a co-founder of QuantFi. We do finance departments as a service for businesses ranging from 5 to 200 million in revenue. So basically fully outsourced function, like a fractional CFO, but a fractional department with everyone from CFO to bookkeeping. And with the recent updates in AI, particularly around Anthropic and Claude and Opus 4.6, we've become super stoked about automating workflows in the current departments that we run. And we want to share that with you all, as well as we recently did a pivot in our business to a new offering that does AI implementation for companies looking to transition and transform their departments. So with that being said, let's dive in. And I think Luke is going to share my LinkedIn information. Feel free to follow, feel free to DM. Would love your thoughts, would love to connect and tackle some of these problems that you're seeing.
Yeah.
So for starters, what we're going to cover today, we're going to go through Claude, the broader construct, the desktop app. We're going to talk about kind of the 3 main tools that Claude offers, or I guess 4. It's going to be chat, Cowork, Code, and then plugins. We'll go through Excel. We'll talk about some of the underlying intelligence structure that exists in the current desktop app, which is skills and integrations or data integrations. And then I'll give you actual use cases. We'll try and fix a broken financial model in Excel. And then we'll do some automating of an accounting process that's traditionally very manual. And we'll build also a little custom software tool that could be used to reconcile CRM data inconsistencies between the sales and the finance team. And then we'll have an open conversation about what this means, where we're at today, what does the accounting and finance department of the future look like, how does AI play a role, what should you be thinking about, and we'll also hopefully have time for a little bit of Q&A to talk to the crowd. So let's dive in. The first thing I want to do here is I'm actually going to just open up Claude Desktop. And the first thing I want to do is, well, let's start where we are. So this is chat. I think, I would assume the majority of people here have at least messed around with one of the chat bots, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Cowork or Copilot. But really what this is it's a reactive intelligence chat tool. So you ask a question, you get an answer, right? It's very assistant-esque, if you will. Like it's not necessarily doing autonomous work, but it's a great tool to replace traditional search because you can do deep research on a specific topic or problem that you're really interested in. The second tool is Cowork, and this is when we start to get away from solely reactive work to autonomous work. And this is where you can do some of the cool things where it's like, hey, we have all of this data from invoices or different sources, and we need to consolidate it into an Excel file that's going to be a source of truth for our financial model. And this is where you can start tying in data and looking at skills. Skills very important. We'll get to that shortly. And ultimately work to an output that is usable and replaces manual, tedious, difficult execution work on your team. And then the last, and I say these kind of go from like in level of expertise. It's like chat is kind of level 1, Cowork is level 2, and code is where it gets more customizable and is a bit more technical in use. And this is where you can basically build fully custom applications, from scratch. And I'll give you a little bit of a preview. We'll wait and we'll upload it. There it is. You can basically build live software tools here. So let me go back to the presentation. So before we go into the automation work, everyone's curious what's going on with the Excel plugin. I would say this is probably where the majority of the hype is. Probably everyone on this career, if you were in accounting and finance, you've spent manual, tedious hours in Excel. Some pretty painful and late in the evening trying to get things finished up and tied out. And I think this is probably the most interesting at surface level to you. Like, can we make that process less painful? I think the answer is yes, but there are limitations with the way the current tool operates. So it's able to do auditing, like if you have a model that has a broken balance sheet or has specific, hard codes in it that you can't find, it will do a really good job at scraping through the model, highlighting where those errors are, putting comments on the cells. And I'll show you this in a second. So like, think of this as, in a way, a supporting junior financial modeler, or it can support multitasking. Like, I don't have time to check this model. Hey, Claude, check this model. And then you go back to the presentation that you're working on or the conversation that you're having with the CFO. So it allows for improved productivity at the user level, but I'm not so sure that the organization would see material benefits. And then if you think about the workflow, it's like traditionally you would have an analyst do version 1 of the model, send it to an associate or a senior. Senior would comment, send it back. And like, that's how that junior talent develops. I think the new world with the add-in actually allows your junior talent to develop directly with Claude, and that frees up your senior talent to do more strategic work or focus on other things versus just reviewing. So let's do a quick review here. This is a live build. Can we see this? Yes, we can. So basically what I did here is I wanted to show just broadly what the capabilities are. So we have a very, very simple 3-statement model here with assumptions and drivers, an income statement, a balance sheet, and a short cash flow statement. The problem is it doesn't tie out. The balance sheet doesn't tie out. And, in this simple example, it might be easy to comb through it, but in a more detailed example, it would be probably pretty annoying to have to go through 10 different tabs and go through all the buildups and figure out why this balance sheet isn't tying. And it gets extra difficult if you're taking a model over from someone else and you weren't the actual person that built the original model. So what I'm having it do here is basically go in and say, find all of the errors in this document, highlight yellow, and then put note comments on each of the errors as to what they are. So you're seeing it work and it's highlighted all of the errors. It put comments on each of the errors and why they're errors. And now it's going through and clearing the comments. So back to that workflow, that's normally like analyst sends broken model to associate. Associate does a review, highlights the errors, puts comments on the cells, sends it back to the analyst. Now it's just the analyst can actually work through this in a way that fixes the problem, frees up the associate, but also teaches the analyst the underlying finance things that they need to learn. So I'll fast forward through this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but you can see how the errors get cleared, and ultimately the balance sheet now ties out and the checking functions are cleared at the very bottom. Once again, so that's great. That's cool. That's useful for in a lot of different parts of business. But I would say if you're trying to use Claude and Excel right now, there's definitely limitations on updating a current financial model. So if the majority of people here are working at companies that already have their 3-statement model in place, and we're not quite there yet where it can automatically update that model for the next quarter. Look, at this advancement rate, we'll probably be there the next 6 to 12 months, but it's just something to be cognizant of. If I were to rank the use cases on value, I think this is towards the lower end of the value spectrum relative to AI. So let's get into some of the more useful workflows that I'm excited about. So as I mentioned, there's kind of three layers of AI in finance that can be used right now. And layer 1 is kind of this assistant level, which is chat. It can help you write emails. It can kind of scrape out some things from documents and help you do reviews. You can use the Excel plugin to help with audits and even building simple models. Or you can use the PowerPoint plugin to help you quickly build presentations. I think that's surface level and kind of just what you would want to do to dip your toes in to understand the capabilities. Then we move to layer 2, which is automating workflows, helping build custom files on revenue reconciliation from SaaS contracts, or helping with intercompany reconciliations. That's where you start to take big chunks out of the department and automate. And then I think layer 3 is where you're building unique skills and ultimately potentially automating a full team member and having a agentic AI accounting manager that automatically runs these processes based on the data that's coming in on an API, which we're not going to fully get to layer 3. That's something that we work at QuantFi with clients on. But for this presentation, we're going to stick with layer 2 and hopefully give you all some quick wins on, in your current department. So before we hop into the actual automated workflows, I want to talk a little bit about skills, which I touched on briefly earlier. A skill, the best way to think about a skill is to think about a human skill. We talked briefly about the financial modeling as a skill, or the analyst skill set. So how do we get our Claude workspace or our AI to think like we need it to think, right? Because there's a lot of information in the world, and with one question, you can in theory get a lot of different answers, but you want it to be your answer, right? So what Claude has done is they've created skills. And I believe Claude right now can reference like 5 skills at once to give you an output. But here are some preloaded skills. And it's a skill on brand guidelines. And like, these are the guidelines around Anthropic's brand. So if you're asking for something with branding design, it will technically reference this skill and give you an output or an answer that's based on the skill. My favorite skill is the skill of creating skills. Now, the cool thing about this is everyone here, I think the majority of people are in accounting and finance. So you're thinking like, okay, we need an accounting auditor. We need an auditor. Like, how do I create that skill, right? So Claude basically created a skill of skills creation that will then like help you create the skill that you're wanting to make. And then in addition, they have a set of skills like kind of out of the box finance skill set, which actually pretty good, pretty thoughtful. But if you were to look here, you can see like this skill supports SOX 404 compliance with control testing methodologies. This one manages a month-end close, and you can click in and you can kind of get some ideas of, okay, this is how it's thinking about the close, pre-close, sometime around the last 2 to 3 business days of the month, you're going to do these. And then post-close, here's kind of the timeline that we're going to work on. So this, I would definitely spend some time both messing around with skill creation, which if you're going to do that, go here, skill creator, or add skill, create with Claude, and it will copy it over to chat, much easier to work here. And it'll basically start prompting you on the skill that you want to create. You can create your own custom skill, or you can do a skill based on what you're actually working on. All right, let's see here. So all right, so we're gonna try and move quickly here. We're 20 minutes in. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna take an intercompany, we're gonna do an intercompany reconciliation. So roll-ups, companies that are doing M&A, conglomerates, funds, kind of all have this like complex allocation structure where you have costs at the holding company that have to get allocated down, or you have shared expenses. And that process I've seen across multiple companies is incredibly painful and manual. So one thing that, what we're focused on here is like, if we were to take all of the information from a shared services invoice, which truthfully, you probably won't have the information as clear as what I'm about to show you, but it's indicative of the capabilities of Claude to to automate this process. So you have a theoretical shared services invoice here for 4 different entities in 3 different currencies, and each expense that is borne at the holding company needs to be allocated to the entities based on different methodologies. Some are percentage of revenue, some are headcount, some are direct charges, et cetera, et cetera. So here's all of like the broader data. Now, if you were to do this in real life, you're going to have data sources, and I just want to show you this real quick. Actually, you're going to have different data sources that give you this information, and this is where you'll use connectors here, and you'll be able to actually drop the files into Google Drive that will then be referenced by Cowork to do the automation work for you. So I didn't do that here, but also spend time with connectors. We use Google Drive a lot. We use a Slack connection. We use a Granola connection. And we use Gamma for presentation making. And Claude will actually work directly with that application to build an output based on data provided by each of those, or using Claude's data in an outside tool. So let's see here. So basically Cowork ran through here, like the process of creating a prompt in chat and then showing the invoice, ultimately getting the prompt over to Cowork. So I go into chat, I say, I'm looking to create a reconciliation file for intercompany expenses, and I want you to help me build a prompt. Now, chat is great at helping you build prompts that are then used in chat or Cowork or Code. So then we go over and we take the invoice and we paste it in here, and we also add in the prompt, and this allows you to see the agentic thinking, and it ultimately builds a file that's used for reconciliation that we then have the ability to share to a controller. So let's take a look at that file real quick. This is what I'm most excited about. Here you go. So what we have here is a journal entry upload sheet, which is a lot of companies will use this to basically pre-book their journal entries in Excel based on underlying reconciliation calculations. You can see here you have all of the entities, all of the GL accounts, debits, credits, in what currency, line items, sources of truth, and the intercompany allocation methodology. Another cool thing here, you get a checking sheet. So similar to the associate analyst relationship that I mentioned earlier, you now have the ability to automate some of this checking. And to me, the goal of this file is to really rationalize a lot of the manual execution work that's being done over 3-5 days, whatever, into a quick, succinct file that can then be directly reviewed by the accounting manager or the controller. Now, let's go in and review an app. Like I mentioned earlier, we wanted to show you the functionality of like building an internal tool. I think this next world, like software has kind of used these really specific cases and they've gone massive, and particularly the horizontal software has created these like really general CRMs that work, but they don't necessarily work for every business. So what we did here is we created an app that's basically used to double check a CRM with assume like sales is on one page about their CRM and finance needs the right numbers for the financial model. Like, let's build a little internal tool where it can audit the CRM and basically tell you what's out of date and what needs to be reviewed. So this is in Code, similar methodology. I worked through in chat, creating a prompt that I then pasted into Code. And this allowed me to build like a quick version one of an app in like maybe 20 minutes. So I'm not going to bore you with this. This is basically Claude Code thinking, but I do want to show you a quick version of the app that was done here, which is pretty cool. So what this does is, like I said, the problem was you have no one's on the same page. Like, how do we get everyone on the same page? Specifically sales and finance. So we've created this app, and it basically audits the CRM, and it says, you have about 30 stale entries into your CRM. X are missing data, X are inconsistent, X have finance forecast risk. And then these are the people, these are the problem employees that haven't updated their CRM. And here are all of the deals. So a tool like this can really be used to mitigate a lot of that manual back and forth between sales and finance, and ideally, increase the accuracy of your projections. So what you just saw, we went through Excel, we went through Claude, we went through the broader desktop app, and then we did a quick Cowork view, which is more so on like actual process automation. And then we showed you some interesting cases that can be used in code. I would say for your next steps, like this week, install Claude for your desktop. You don't want to use the web app. If you just go to claude.com, you don't get the full functionality. So download Claude for desktop and just give it a shot. Mess around with something on chat, try and automate a process on Cowork, create your own skill, maybe build a random little software tool so you can understand the functionality. And then I think the last point I wanted to touch on is like, this is a lot to digest. I think most companies that we're talking to and working with are using AI at the user level. And that's most definitely step one, which is you yourselves plugging into your department and like getting everyone a license, and then people start messing around and creating skills, and then they optimize work. But I think really where we're heading is a departmental transformation where the talent structure looks different. There's a different kind of skill set now. The controller is still the controller, the CFO is still the CFO, but I think a lot of that execution work starts to move around and be automated. And it's really interesting to think about like where we've gotten today and really the acceleration over the last 6 months and where we're going for the next, where we're ultimately going in the next couple of years here. So just to end it real quick, QuantFi again, we do manage finance departments as a service, end to end from CFO to bookkeeping. And we're also layering in automation to our own department. So learning a ton there that we're hoping to share. And then we also offer AI sprint services where we will work with your team to build a lot of these automations that we just talked about and really map out your processes. Like, let's do an evaluation of the finance and accounting department and map out where the manual pain points are. And then we'll be able to, identify where the most opportunity is today, what's green light, what can be automated today, what's yellow, what can be partially automated today, and what's red. We're on hold there for now. So that's it. I would love to see if we can take Q&A. I don't know, Luke, where do you want to head with this?
Yeah, no, thank you, Christian. Already, thank you for covering, I think, so much ground in 25 minutes. It was super, super ambitious. And I hope the audience just got a taste under the hood of what's possible with Claude Code, and Claude Cowork. Funny enough, the webinar platform crashed and we couldn't see the chat, which is why it felt a bit silent when we were actually presenting, but was able to see that there are tons of questions. And so what I'm thinking, Christian, we can just do rapid fire, maybe 4 or 5 of the top voted questions, and run through that quickly, because I do want to make sure that people are getting also some value here in terms of just getting your insights on a few kind of like bigger questions. So we can just dive into that. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan. Let's do it.
Cool. All right. The first question is from Marcio. 32 upvotes. It's the most popular question. And of course, it has to do with data privacy, sensitive data. So when thinking about Claude, how do you manage sensitive data with Claude? Is it safe? Any safeguards you can take around that?
Yeah. So, and I also just dropped my LinkedIn in the chat. Feel free to follow along. We're actively posting on this stuff, but it's a great question, and it's something. Can I tell you that I'm 100% confident in it? Like, no. But what I will say is that Claude represents that the enterprise subscription does not train on your data, right? So, of course, you want to like, I would say for starters, you want to make sure that you're using enterprise, but also truthfully, like, use your attorney and use your technology resources. Our view currently is that enterprise is safe. Now you want to make sure the guardrails are in place because the non-enterprise version, I think there's some questions out there that I've seen on the legal side around confidentiality. So definitely do your diligence before you start sharing the data. And I would point you more towards the enterprise subscriptions there.
Cool, thanks for that. Next question comes from Flora. She's asking, what is your experience with using Claude within Google Sheets? Is the best way to keep my live models in Excel and have Claude uploaded to the Sheets for me periodically?
Use an Excel and then upload to Sheets. So if, like, ignoring Claude, the cross functionality of using a model in Excel and Google Sheets, like the formulas aren't one-to-one. So the transition's not always clean. I would say, ideally you're working on either Excel or Google. But I don't think the plugin, like, I've really only used the Excel plugin. So I don't know if I have a great view there, other than, look, like, the Excel view isn't like, it's valuable, but it wasn't the thing that I was most excited about. So I guess, I don't know, that's probably not a great answer for you, but yeah, if you're trying to reference data, however, I don't think it's as big of a difference. Like, if you're building a model, switching back and forth is difficult. But if you're just trying to reference data, I don't think there's a big difference between using Google and using Microsoft. It's more about, like, how you've structured the skill to think about the data that's coming in.
Gotcha. So Elena has a similar question, asking you, do you use Gemini within Google Sheets? And is it as good as Claude for Excel? I don't know if you have an experience.
I don't have a strong view there. I don't have a strong view there, honestly. I would say things are moving quickly. It seems like when Anthropic puts out an update, Chat follows a couple weeks later with a ChatGPT Excel add-in update, and Gemini will follow a couple days later. I would say the broader thing that I'm hearing is they're kind of all equal on the Excel plugin side. That's what I've read. But I don't have a strong view on if any of those are better. What I would say is the Claude Cowork structure, as you get away from financial modeling and into true automation, it's much more user-friendly. And we're using Anthropic on our side, and I think that's where we're going to stay for the next 12 months. But look, you got to test everything. You got to try everything. You got to get your hands dirty and test some of these things out.
Yep, makes sense. A good question by Baltazar here. He's asking, have you ever seen a situation where Claude has fixed an error, but the fix was actually wrong?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the idea of, like, human in the loop. Like, at what point are you having human intervention and kind of, like, checking manually things? Like, how often do you check Claude's work?
Hallucinations are definitely real. I would say you want human in the loop is very important as, like, final sign off. The way I think of it is, like, this Cowork function on the accounting reconciliations, as an example, is meant to be a version 1 of a file that is sent to an accounting manager or controller, and they very much so do a review. So the way that I think about it is like, how can you structure that file in a way that has a pre-review done? So when you're doing your prompt, say, make sure to include checking functions, right? Make sure to do a manual reconciliation tab like we did in the journal entry, or the checking functions that we did in the financial model. Add that level of responsibility into the actual workflow that's coming from AI. Because if you're having to manually do all of those checks, it kind of defeats the value of the execution. You want to have the package and like structured in a way where you're getting the output, but you also have the supporting documentation, the sources of truth, and also have the checking functions if it's something Excel or even in an app.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So prompting is very important there, right? Prompting and skill development is very important there, because if you were just to ask it for a model, you're not going to know if that works. It's like, add your checks, and that really comes down to quality prompting.
Gotcha. And that kind of segues nicely into this next question, actually. Let's also just take maybe 2 or 3 more and then wrap it up.
Sure.
One from Aminata that is asking, what are the main blind spots to keep in mind when setting up and running these workflows? So maybe prompting is maybe one of the things that you just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm going to stick. Yeah, I do think prompting. I think you want to be really intentional about how you prompt. It's really easy to get lazy. That's why I use chat. Like, I go to the chat function. I'm like, okay, I'm about to prompt Cowork to do this reconciliation. But if I was just to go into Cowork and say, can you do this reconciliation? Being a human, I don't think it would give me the output that I want. So I would go to chat and I would say, help me create a prompt for Cowork to do this reconciliation. And then it'll write a really thoughtful prompt in its own language, effectively, that you can then copy and paste into Cowork. So I would say that's like probably the biggest guardrail. The biggest guardrail is prompting still. And the biggest solution is to just use the tool to prompt, like use the tool to teach you how to prompt. Now, there's still limitations. This thing's not anywhere near perfect, but like the thing that we got really excited about over the last few months, or really when Opus 4.6 came out, was like, it felt like it was commercial. It felt like we started to get to a point where there's like real commercial value on using Cowork in the finance and accounting department, or using code to build an app. So you have to be cognizant of that. You still want to have your review eyes on, but I think you can get around dealing with those problems by prompting well, building the right skills. Skills is another thing that we went through. Build the right skill that's going to operate like the way that you would tell your employee to operate. So making sure your workspace is optimized for your current function is really important. And then using the tool to its full capability is also something that you want to focus on. And like a quick way to learn too is like, you can ask it to teach you, right? Like, hey, can we do a little case study and work through this problem? And it'll provide you the data, and it'll do each one of these steps side by side. Exactly what I showed today. These were all hypothetical examples. And I basically prompted it, hey, I'm teaching this class. I want to show some cool examples. What are some good examples? Give me the prompts, give me the data, et cetera, et cetera. You could work through this thing end to end by yourself as well. And you're going to learn a ton along the way. And you're going to start developing your own mental model on where the holes are and what you need to keep in mind.
Gotcha. Thank you. 2 more questions. One from Matthew. He's asking, do you have any recommendations on the data structure format to enable dashboard automation? For instance, should all KPIs like CAC, LTV, EBITDA be directly calculated in database format versus letting Claude calculate them?
I'm running things right now on, I want to have the supporting calculations, right? So I would run that on G Sheets or Excel as an example, where I know this is the EBITDA reconciliation. Like when you're thinking about a software dashboard, like we just talked about, or even just any dashboard, you kind of have two components. One is front end, right? And that's the visual that you're all seeing and you're interacting with. And one is the back end, which is like the data, the infrastructure, right? So for simplicity's sake right now, I'm saying make a cool front end that's super usable, easy to update. Have a back end that's also simple. So you can check very easily and you can say, this is our dashboard, it's working really well. Here you go, CEO. But you're also comfortable as a CFO or a finance leader because you're able to go into Excel and see the calculations and know your adjusted EBITDA is right or your CAC is fully loaded.
Makes sense. Last question, more basic about Claude Plan. Which one do you recommend using just to like maybe get your toe wet and test things out, and also like sufficient tokens? Like how do you think about that?
Yeah, so on getting your toes wet, just start with the basics. You know, you'll probably, and it'll slow down. It'll tell you when it slows down, right? So start with the basics, start with chat. As you move over to Cowork and Code, you'll start more usage, then maybe you upgrade to Pro, Max, whatever it is. But of course, keep in mind, like if you're using organizational data, there is like, definitely don't just start uploading your company's or your client's data to Claude without running the proper checks there. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
About around tokens.
Oh, token usage. Yeah, I don't have a strong view there. Like I tend to run, we're running a lot right now. I don't have a strong view there. Just, you know, kind of at your discretion, watch the usage. Some tasks such as like combing through Excel files use a lot of usage. Other tasks don't, such as chat. So that's kind of user specific, I would say.
Gotcha. All right, I think we're going to end there. I know that we're a bit over time, but I think it was also worthwhile, you know, having Christian answer all your questions. So again, huge thank you to Christian, to the audience that's still here. Thank you so much for tuning in. There's still quite a large number of you there. If you found this kind of workshop interesting and helpful, we can definitely do it again. And I'm sorry about this bug in the chat because we're not able to see any chats, which is very frustrating. Also on the CFO Connect side, we're actually launching our State of AI in Finance report tomorrow. I swear this is like an accident doing this workshop today and the launch tomorrow. But I just wanted to share in the chat early access to the report if you want to check it out. Besides that, yeah, thank you, everybody. The replay will be put up on YouTube. And you'll also get an email in about an hour or so to watch the replay. So again, thank you all. And we hope to see you soon. Thanks, Christian.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Luke. This was awesome.
Thanks,
Hope
guys.
we found it helpful.